Hello, my name is Angela Lorkowski, and I am at the Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art in Bentonville, Arkansas, marveling at the mystery that is Enassamishhinjijweian. Tom Uttech, a painter and photographer of the North American wilderness, created this oil on canvas. Uttech feels at home in nature, and in his biography, Magnetic North, by Margaret Andrea, Uttech states, "I sit down, stare at the blank canvas, and start to draw a place where I'd like to be." His overall goal is to leave the viewer in awe, and with this particular painting, he did just that. Enassamishhinjijweian is intended to amaze the spectator and have them view nature in a supernatural way. The audience is shown the natural world that is so rarely observed nowadays, and is urged to fight for its preservation. Through Enassamishhinjijweian, spectators can experience something unforgettable, and become as passionate about nature as the artist when he created this painting. Also noteworthy is the title, Enassamishhinjijweian, which means a hope of good things to come in the language of the Anishinaabe Indian tribe. What good things are on their way? A new day is portrayed in this painting, and a crowd of animals make their way through the forest towards a new opportunity, hastening towards something new and exciting. Uttech, although a photographer of nature scenes such as these, produces paintings by memory. This is understandable, as the woodland depicted is not realistic of an actual northern forest, but rather represents what one would feel or imagine while exploring these woods. This romanticized experience is far different than the expected peaceful lakeside. Taking up the foreground and fading into the back of the landscape is an unnatural charge of birds and wolverines and moose and lynx and various other creatures that create flowing, horizontal movement across the plane of the painting. Sharp brush strokes allow the identification of single feathers and unique fur and feather patterns. The trees are painted similarly, with individual twigs hanging off the branches and texture detail on the bark. Despite the naturalness of the individual subjects, the fantastical swarm of animals is bizarre and unexpected, giving the painting a feel of slight surrealism. Each individual animal is detailed and realistic. I can almost hear the trample of paws and hooves, the excited chirping and calls they make as the massive animals dash and soar across the river valley. The overall piece is a massive 8.5 by 9.3 feet, making the flow of animals that much more powerful, especially when up close. The exaggerated density of these creatures just increases their perceived speed. All creatures are looking straight ahead, intent on their direction. Only the owls differ in this way. They stare at us, intensely, as if they know we are looking back. Perhaps this is because of their wise nature that allows them to be aware of their present state as figures in a painting. In the lower center of the foreground, amidst the clutter of fleeing animals, a bear defies the norm by standing still. Your eyes lock onto him, almost freezing the surrounding movement. Due to the similarities between humans and bears, in Uttech's paintings especially, bears symbolize the viewer. Motionless and amazed by the rush around him, the bear does not participate in the dash and remains a bystander himself. The bear is staring across the river longingly, but at what? If you follow his eyes, you may detect another bear standing on the other side of the water. This gives an emotional, human-like element to the bear, and brings a loneliness to the painting that was not present before. Our bear might join in the rush of animals, but he doesn't, because he wants his distant friend by his side. A horizon line cuts the painting almost perfectly in half. The sunrise is the focus of the upper half of the painting. I determined this to be a sunrise rather than a sunset due to the pale hues and the presence of a morning fog. This softness to the sky creates a dreamlike existence, especially with the moon so dwarfed by the overwhelming sun. A light at the end of the tunnel, the sun in the very center of the painting, reminds us of the hope described in the title, the hope of good things to come and the promise of a new day. What is also interesting is how the sun faintly resembles an eye, maybe as a symbol of a divine spirit watching over the scene. Furthermore, the sunrise brings into the painting the element of time. This makes the animals seem rushed even more, as though they are starting their day with a long journey ahead. A second horizontal line splits the foreground with the background, the line between the edge of the cliff and the valley below. The vertical lines of the trees that almost frame the painting bring some balance to the horizontal movement. Fallen trees litter the foreground as the animals seem to have pushed them down in the stampede. These very trees help give atmospheric perspective to the artwork, drawing your eyes deep into the piece and down into the valley. These two particular tree trunks lead the eye diagonally into the sun, the center of the piece, and the point to a triangle. Another way of interpreting this painting, and one that I had considered, is an environmentalist's attempt to preserve these forests. In the background, what initially was believed to be a mystical morning fog can be interpreted as a forest fire, devouring the trees on either side of the painting where the smoke is rising. The center background would have been already barren of trees because of this very fire, and the animals are fleeing to escape as the owls stare accusingly at us humans, who had allowed their homes to be so destroyed. This is a saddening viewpoint, as what initially draws the viewer in is the beauty of the sun and nature, and afterward, it's realized the beauty is being destroyed. Personally, I prefer to believe this painting to be too surreal for such a literal meaning, as Uttech has before painted this movement of animals without such dark symbolism, and the title's meaning of hope of good things to come does not describe such a scene. This painting was created in the postmodernism era in 2009. Postmodernism is a turning away from the hard geometrical shapes of abstract and minimalist modernism. With postmodernism came a revisitation of a broad variety of historical art styles and an exploration of new ideas. In Uttech's Enassamishhinjijweian, one can see the influence of the American landscape paintings from the Romantic movement, dramatic nature yet realistically painted subjects. The postmodern world is an increasingly industrialized and urbanized world. Because of this shift away from nature, some artists made it their mission to promote the natural environment. Through his art, Uttech is urging people to become closer to nature after being disconnected for so long. He attempts to provoke a strong emotional response from the viewer to lure them into a world that television just can't do justice. Because we are still living in this age of postmodern art, it is difficult to pinpoint a piece of art typical to the period. Upon my research, though, I discovered Jean-Claude and Christo, environmental artists of the postmodern era. The umbrellas is the placement of numerous large, uniformly colored umbrellas through a landscape in both America and Japan. An overwhelming number of these structures was used to create the needed effect. A single umbrella would have gone almost unnoticed. Your attention is grabbed by the sheer number, as it is with the animals in Enassamishhinjijweian. It goes without saying that these two works of art are very different. Jean-Claude and Christo bring a physical aspect to their work. While they stood, you could approach these massive structures and touch them. Marvel in the oddity that they brought to the outside world. Uttech, though, must rely on visual stimulation alone to bring the viewer into his world. He relies on you to make an emotional connection with his vision, and even then, his goal will not be achieved until you truly experience nature and step out into the woods. Additionally, the figures in Uttech's paintings are so incredibly tiny when compared to the towering umbrellas. Because of their size, however, there couldn't be as many umbrellas as there were fleeing animals in order to make the project realistic. In this way, Jean-Claude and Christo were limited in their inability to manipulate the laws of nature. Despite this, the umbrellas can be explored from countless viewpoints, when Uttech can only show you his scene from just one perspective. But in a very familiar way, the umbrella leads your eyes across the horizon, taking a very real, natural scene and complementing it with the structures that seem so out of place. And although this is not a painting, the umbrellas uses similar techniques as Enassamishhinjijweian to reach the same goal. They take a natural scene and put it in an unexpected twist on it, all to bring the viewers into a unique environment. The umbrella's aim is to make the audience more conscious of the environment in their everyday lives, to make people aware of nature and encourage them to experience it, as well as to protect the disappearance of our ecosystems. Very different mediums, yet the message is near identical. There is absolutely nothing I dislike about this painting. Observing it is a magical experience. The excitement of the animals and the vast number of them is just so thrilling to behold. Every time I look at this piece, I see something new, just because there's so much going on. There's flying squirrels gliding through the trees, and moose going for a swim, and weasels navigating the forest floor. What makes it even more amazing, in my opinion, are those little details I had to search for. For example, the bear's partner on the other side of the river. I was absolutely stunned by that quirk, and yet it made me happy to realize just how much was going on. Moreover, it's a beautifully painted scene. I am captivated by the colors of the pleasant morning sky, how the beams of light shine through the tops of the trees. Overall, Enassamishhinjijweian will invite you into a magical world and enchant you with its wonders. Thank you.